Hey, welcome back to the Adult Bible Study with First Baptist Church of Ray City. My name is Charles. I'm one of our associate pastors, and today we're going to be diving into our last session in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1 through 14. I hope you enjoy today's Bible study. So, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. But why are you to remember your Creator? You are to remember your Creator because Ecclesiastes 11:10 says that youth and the prime of life are fleeting. Not only are they brief, here one moment and gone the next, but as Ecclesiastes 9 tells us and reminds you that God as Creator is also the judge, and He will bring you to judgment. You are to know that all of your life, all the things that you do, will be brought under the judgment of God. Therefore, you should not only look forward to the joy you have in life because He has made you to enjoy it, but also as the Maker, He is judge over your life. Since it is a part of His creation, this means you are to pursue joy in the world within the boundaries of the goodness and virtue God has set. And this leads us into the next section. Before the days of adversity come and the years approach when you will say, I have no delight in them. What are the days of adversity? There are two primary theories behind the flow of thought and what the days of adversity mean. The first is the teacher is presenting the aspect as if you neglect remembering God and therefore your ability to have joy is lost, and the passing year will press the unheeded reader to despair so that you will have no delight. The second, the days of adversity are the advancing years where death seems to be encroaching into life, creating no delight. As greater and greater fragility comes with the advancing of age, both of these theories hold weight and plausibility. I tend to lean towards the second theory because it seems to tie in with the next section more smoothly, as verse 2 through 5 graphically describes aging, culminating in death and burial in verses 6 and 7. Before the sun and the light are darkened. Sun and light have a dual meaning in this verse based on Ecclesiastes 11:7, which is in reference to both youth and joy. This means the darkening of light reflects the loss of a capacity for joy, as well as the fading of life into its twilight, representing the unmaking of creation as it slips from the vibrancy of youth to the encroaching decay of death. And the moon and the stars tie in with the apocalyptic nature of the reference, and the cloud returns after the rain. The returning clouds refer to the continual sorrow which come as a result of the inevitable problems of the aging process. This sorrow and the darkening of joy through the unmaking of creation is what is pictured graphically from verses 3 through 5. On the day when the guards of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, the women who grind grain cease because they are few, and the ones who watch through the windows see dimly. The doors at the street are shut while the sound of the mill fades. When one rises at the sound of a bird, all the daughters' song grows faint. Also, they are afraid of heights and dangers on the road. The almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper loses its spring, and the caperberry has no effect, for the mere mortal is headed to his eternal home, and mourners will walk around in the streets. The best interpretation of these passages is to take the graphic imagery as a generalized allegory for different parts of the human body, both physically and mentally, that decline with age. In this view, the guardians of the house become the arms, and they grow weak and tremble with age. The strong men are understood as the legs, which stoop, meaning that they grow bent and tremble because of their weariness and weakness. The women who grind are the teeth, which fall out and become few. The ones who watch through windows are the eyes, which begin to dim and see less clearly. The doors that are shut depict the isolation of old age, and the sound that fades is due to hearing loss, while one rises at the sound of a bird depicts the inability to sleep soundly for the elderly. Even the joy of hearing others sing is taken because they can no longer hear the daughters of song, which ties back into hearing loss. They're afraid of heights because of their weakened state and the weakness of their legs, or their instability as they walk, and of the dangers on the road, which points to the lack of vigor and the fear of venturing out. The almond blossom is a reference to the white hair because of the whiteness of the blossom when it blooms. And the grasshopper loses its spring, points to the past liveliness of youth combined with the difficult and cumbersome walk of the elderly. The caperberry, which has no effect, refers to a lack of sexual drive and desire. Since the caperberry was regarded as an aphrodisiac, all of this culminates with the reason for all of this decay, and that is that the mere mortal is headed to his eternal home. Death is what is in view here. And as the mere mortal is headed to his eternal home, he leaves behind a wake of mourners that are walking in the streets. What can we see from this section? How pervasive the encroachment of death into life happens with the aging process and the unmaking of God's good creation upon humanity. The imagery of decay and the unmaking of God's good creation are meant to draw your attention to your need to remember your Creator. Because life is brief and the prime of life is even more short-lived. Before. This word picks up the thread which links verse 6 through 8 back to verse 1. So remember your Creator, helping to recall and drive home the main point of all the imagery that was just unpacked, and that is that we are to remember our Creator before we die. In this section, death is pictured in 4 expressions, which are divided into 2 pairs. The silver cord is snapped and the golden bowl is broken is the first pairing, and the jar shattered at the spring and the wheel is broken into the well is the second pairing. And what we see with this first pairing of the silver cord being snapped and the golden bowl being broken is that the imagery of the cord is imagery of a silver cord which is holding up this golden bowl. And when the silver cord breaks or is snapped, the bowl falls and is shattered, broken and irreparable. Both the silver and the gold communicate the preciousness of life and the devastation of the end of life, which once lost cannot be put back together because it is broken and irreparable. The second is of the jar, which is shattered at the spring, and the wheel, which is broken into the well. The image being portrayed here is of a well with a wheel to raise and lower a jar for water. When the wheel breaks, falling into the well, the jar falls as well and is shattered, releasing all of its life-giving water. From here, the teacher abandons the imagery of death and just speaks directly to the reader candidly about death in verse 7. And the dust returns to the earth as it once was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Death is the turning of the body back to dust, which points to humanity's earthly origins as well as its physical weakness, since it is from dust that man was created. For the Lord God formed man out of the dust from the ground. This means that for the dust to return to the earth, is a reversal of Genesis 2:7 and the no longer animating of the body by the breath of God or by the Spirit, because that's another way of saying the Hebrew word which means spirit is breath. And we see that here God breathed the breath of life. Again, that could also be spirit, breathed the spirit of life into his nostrils. This ties both of these together. And what we see is that this breath, this spirit, returns back to the God who gave it. The reality of death drives the teacher to declare that this is absolutely futile and everything is futile. This is almost identical to Ecclesiastes 1:2, absolutely futile. Says the teacher, absolutely futile. Everything is futile. And this functions as the cap end of all that Solomon had to say and means that death nullifies everything. Human achievement, wisdom, strength, all of it becomes futile in the face of death. From here, Solomon transitions to underlining the validity of what he has written. In addition to the teacher, that is, the writer, Solomon, who will give his list of credentials for why he should be listened to and why seeking a different answer is futile. So in addition to the teacher being a wise man, he constantly taught the people knowledge. So this teacher is constantly teaching the people knowledge. He weighed, explored, and arranged many proverbs. He sought to find delightful sayings and write the words of truth accurately. The teacher is wise and he spent a great deal of time teaching. He has devoted himself to learning and to writing accurately the truth, while also writing these words in an aesthetically pleasing and delightful way. And these sayings that he has written down, the sayings of the wise, are like cattle prods. Those from the master's collection are like firmly embedded nails. In the same way a cattle prod is used to guide the cattle, the sayings of the wise will guide those that listen. The nail, which is firmly embedded, provides stability. The collection most likely of wisdom create a firm foundation. And this is because the sayings are given by one shepherd. The shepherd referenced here is God himself. This becomes very interesting when seen in the light of the doctrine of inspiration that has occurred, where the author perceived he was writing down wisdom that could have only come from God. This reality causes the teacher to write one final warning. But beyond these, these is the many sayings given by the one shepherd in the book, my son, be warned. This word carries a reflexive force that points to the responsibility of the individual reader to heed what is about to be said. And that is that there is no end to the making of many books. Even at the time of the writing of Ecclesiastes, many tablets and papyrus leaflets were made and plentiful, and doubtless that there were wisdom literatures from other religions that could have swayed the reader, yet the teacher warns against searching out of other wisdom than the wisdom that comes from the one shepherd. Not only that, but much study wearies the body. So he brings his book to a close with two final points. When all has been heard, the conclusion of the matter is this: fear God and keep his commands, because this is for all humanity. For God will bring every act to judgment, including every hidden thing, whether good or evil. The first point concerns God's greatness and majesty. You are to fear God, meaning you are to realize his unchanging power and justice, which delivers from wickedness and oppression and self-righteousness, leading to the hatred of sin. It is not only the beginning of wisdom, but based on this passage, it is the end of wisdom. The conclusion of the matter is that you are to fear God. The second point concerns the Word of God, and that is the keeping of God's commands. You are to keep His commands. The way we live our lives is based upon what we worship. Notice the order of these 2 points. The first is the fear of God. The second is the keeping of the commands. You must see that God will judge you based upon your actions, based upon what you worship, that even every hidden thing will be seen. So my challenge to you today is to pursue God, knowing that He has created a good world full of pleasures for you to enjoy. Not only has He done that, but He has set the right and best way to enjoy those pleasures in accordance with His Word. So I end this study in Ecclesiastes the same way Solomon did, by urging you to fear God and keep His commands, because this is the best way to make the most of this brief life while we still have breath in our lungs. I'm Charles. This is the Adult Bible Study with First Baptist Church of Ray City, and I look forward to studying again with you next time.